Hello, I'm Anthony Malum, and welcome to the Premium Degenerates podcast, presented to you by the Smite Draft League. I'll be your host going forward, and for episode 1, what better way to start than talking to the owner behind the league, iNooblet. We'll be talking a bit about the mission statement, getting to know him a little bit, and we'll get some teasers and hints as to what Season 2 has in store for everybody. So without having to wait anymore, let's start talking.
So they didn't fully understand the transition, and that kind of broke my heart. I'm very close. I was very close with my community, knew them all on a personal level. So that was a little tough because there wasn't a lot of reason for them to come back. So as a young lad growing up, I think the number one goal and passion I had in life was just to be an entertainer. 100% date Arby, hands down. Not even a question. Love Arby to death, and we'd live a whole life together. It'd be great. We'd skip dating, go straight to married. It'd be great.
Welcome, Nooblet, Mr. Owner. Sir, do I need to salute?
You do not. I appreciate you having me on here, though. It's an honor to be on the first episode. I'm a big fan of you, so you know.
Oh, well. I mean, we're already getting into flattery, and we're less than a minute in, so you can't really beat that. But no, it makes sense, I think, to have the owner who, this whole thing is your passion project based off of other stuff, which we're going to get into as much of that as we can. But again, this is the first episode of Premium Degenerates. So what's your background? What's your Smite journey? Because I mean, running an amateur league for Smite isn't exactly, the game's not big enough for that to be a super common occurrence. So what kind of got you to that point?
It dates back a long way. So I guess starting the very beginning, I picked up gaming at a young age, like a lot of us did. And I really picked up competitive gaming probably around 8th grade in high school, which was quite a few moons ago. Really got into the MLG scene with Halo and then eventually Call of Duty, and I actually competed in Call of Duty. So I was very big into the esports league. And then I joined the Air Force, and Smite had just come out around that time, and my buddy just said, "Hey, there's this free game called Smite." I had no idea what any of the MMO RPGs were, anything like that, any MOBAs. And so I checked it out and was very bad at it, but it was just something about it, something about the strategy, something about you had to do more than just run and gun. You actually had to think, really captivated me. And I just dove full into Smite. It was pretty much the only game that got me off Call of Duty. And I've been playing it ever since Season 2, ever since it was released on Xbox. And I became a streamer for Smite. Some people in the Discord know me from streaming. And I really just found myself thinking that although I enjoyed streaming, I really enjoyed helping other people in their journey to become a streamer, stuff like that, and setting up events for all the viewers and whatnot. I found that really fun. And I felt that I was getting a little too old to be in a competitive scene anymore. I didn't think I was going to go pro in Smite. So I decided, why not make an organization where other people can showcase their talents, and I can just watch it, enjoy it, and use my production history to facilitate it. And it seemed to have worked out with good timing, and I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly gone well. The first season, there was a few hiccups here and there, which we'll talk about too. But overall, it was a great success, and I feel like it was very, very well received, which means a lot, especially because the Smite community can be harsh to receiving pretty much anything, good or bad. So you mentioned a few things that I want to get to, but let's start with, you mentioned that you transitioned from being a streamer yourself into creating the league so that other people could find success, be it competing, production,
Right.
or whatever it may be. And you definitely straight up sacrificed your streaming career for it because everything transitioned from the iNooblet brand into the Smite Draft League brand. Was that a
Right.
hard decision to make? What was the process of
It
doing that like? Did
it
it end up being worth it?
honestly it honestly wasn't. I really, really enjoyed streaming, and I was becoming pretty successful at it. Over the year and a half, 2 years I was doing it, I was growing a pretty good brand, but um, I was trying to do more than what I was as a streamer, higher production, all of these events, different types of streaming. And it kind of got me burned out, and I was falling out of love with it. And I had to get back to a place of, what is it I love doing? And I know I love Smite. I want to do whatever I do in the future. I want to do it with Smite. I thought, hey, should I try and get into the competitive scene and be a
Mhm.
player? Talking to some people I know in it, and that's not it. And and it just happened. I was talking to my very good friend post drama. Shout out to the boy. And I was thinking, like, hey, I did a little bit of casting previously. I love that. What if we made our own league and then we could just bring the competitive scene here? I could facilitate it. I could host it because I did a little casting on YouTube of just viewer games. Everybody loved it. It was very fun.
Absolute chaos. Auto's here, Norman. Auto's here, baby. Auto's here. Let the bees do the work. Hit him with it. One auto, please, Norman. Don't get stunned.
And I thought I had so much enjoyment out of that. It was a very easy decision to say, "Hey, let's transition. Let's use the fan base I already have, and let's transition to something completely different. Let's make this a community beyond just me. Let's make this a Smite community for people who love doing what I do, and we'll go that route." And yeah, no, it was very easy to do.
How did I mean, your community was like you said, you were starting to grow at a pretty rapid pace in your 2021 wrap up. You had over 6,000 hours watched, which is
Yeah.
pretty significant for a smaller streamer. How did your community initially take to that? Were they a bit more kind of like, okay, I mean, yeah, or were they disappointed? Because for smaller communities, you tend to have more tight knit communities and a lot of very devoted viewers. So did they take it well, or most of them still around, or how did that go?
It was it was a bit 50-50. So there were a lot of people who joined my community because of Smite, and they loved it, and they saw the vision of what I was doing, and they know my visions of grandeur, and they were fully supportive of it. People like Arbiter have been around since day one in my stream, and they were completely on board. There were a lot of people though that came in that didn't necessarily play Smite because I was a big variety streamer, and they were just there for me and our community. So they didn't fully understand the transition, and that that kind of broke my heart. I'm very close. I was very close with my community, knew them all on a personal level. So that was a little tough because there wasn't a lot of reason for them to come back to this because they weren't necessarily Smite goers. But in the end, they were all very supportive of they understood what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go, and best community in the world. I'm a little biased, but I think they're very supportive of it, and it made it even easier to transition to becoming a league and instead of a standalone streamer.
Yeah, and I think that's a really tough decision to make because, like I said, those smaller communities are they're obviously they aren't the monetary backing of Twitch, but they're the heart of Twitch and what makes it. And every big streamer had that tiny community at one point, and a lot of them will follow those streamers to the end of the earth. So, like you said, having to say goodbye to some of them who understandably just couldn't follow that content string, but ultimately want a success for you is tough. But I do think it screams just about the commitment overall to the league, which might be something that, and I'm sure you'll want to talk about this and touch on this a bit too. That's something that I think sets apart SDL in terms of at least vision, in that there's a much grander scope than just being another SAL league.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's been the vision since day one. I wasn't even honestly familiar with the rest of the Smite amateur leagues when we started this. I just wanted a place for competitive Smite, and I personally never found one in the 7-8 years I've been playing Smite. So I thought I'd start one up, and then I got introduced to the Smite Amateur League world. And although they're doing amazing things out there, and I love where they're going with it, I just felt that I could bring more to it. I feel like there was more to be had from the amateur leagues that was missing. There was just a disconnect. There was just this huge gap between SPL and SAL, and I felt like I could bridge it a little bit. Obviously, we're still very young as a league, but I think our goals as a league are getting close to bridging that and giving people the closest experience they can have to the pro league through an amateur league.
And I think a big part of that, I definitely agree, but I think a big part of that is the production value that at least we attempt to get the majority of the time. And you mentioned earlier on, I said I was going to come back to it. And you mentioned that you had a production background, which normally production backgrounds and military guys don't necessarily run one to one. I mean, it does happen occasionally. You'll find a guy who happens to be the guy who likes to sing Les Mis at night at base, but the majority of the time, there's a big separation there. So what got you into production? What's your background with that?
So as a young lad growing up, I think the number one goal and passion I had in life was just to be an entertainer, whether that was making home movies and putting them up on MySpace or just being silly at school and making people laugh. I just love to entertain people. And that eventually, just one day, I think at high school, some people came by as they do with a brochure for a trade school and say, "Hey, this is a film school. If you want to go, you can do graphic design, you can do media production, things like that." And that really resonated with me because I didn't know exactly what I want to do as an adult. But I was like, "Hey, that's the path I could go. I could go be a film producer. I could go keep making these videos that I'm making at a higher rate." So I joined uh, a film school and went to it for college, and I learned a lot. It was a wonderful school. I felt like I was in the right place. Everything made sense. It was continuing my passion. And then, of course, that was right as things start transitioning in the world to big streamers and YouTube. And
Yeah.
I realized, hey, there's no way. I don't necessarily need a 4-year degree and be $100,000 in debt to produce movies and make an impact on the world through media. So I took what I knew, and I didn't finish my degree. I went about halfway, took all the classes I learned, and then pursued my other passion I had in life, my other goal, which was always to join the military because my parents were in the Air Force and my brother had just joined. And I said I better do this before I'm excessively in debt. And I joined up, and I couldn't continue that trade school because there's no way you can do it without being at school. But I took the lessons I learned, the values I learned, and then the flame of passion that it gave me, and I just kept trying to implement that into my life, which eventually went to streaming and then here.
I think the transition, I mean, like you just said it best, going from trade school film production to military is pretty drastic, but having grown up in that landscape, it's a bit different than some people who tend to kind of have it on a whim, or they have it because they want to, escape something or see things. You kind of always grew up wanting that, and it went well. You graduated with honors. You Everything went very quickly for you in terms of, ranks and popularity, oddly enough, and, assignments seem to be fun. You weren't telling me about the dirt assignments that nobody wants to get being sent to, a cornfield somewhere for a
I've
base.
been very blessed in my career. Yes, I have.
So tell me a bit about that. You don't have to, go too deep, or you can go as deep as you'd like to, but talk about a bit about your time. Not so much now, because now we know you're full time, 80 hours a week, SDL, of course. but
I try to
but
be.
more so some of your more fun experiences and a bit about what the Air Force has been like.
Yeah, the Air Force unlocked a brand new passion for me that I didn't know I wanted. I was very unsure about the job I wanted when I was joining. I don't know, I'll go be a mechanic, I'll go do all these kinds of things. And then my dad, oddly enough, was telling me about this career field called EOD, Explosive Ordnance Disposal. He was an EOD, but he worked with them closely in his time in the Air Force. And he said, yeah, they do a lot of fun stuff. They blow stuff up. It's pretty cool. And I sat down and watched The Hurt Locker, which no one considering EOD should ever do. And I went, that seems pretty fun and it seems pretty challenging. And at that time, it was damn near the height of Iraq and Afghanistan. IED's the number one killer of troops overseas. And I thought, yeah, that's something I could do. A single guy, got some talents. I can probably make a difference there. So I joined up. It is, in fact, one of the toughest schools in the military. Not
It's an
necessarily
it's a it's
physicality,
an
but
8-week training, correct?
so it's the preliminary course is 8 weeks, and then you have to go to the main schoolhouse, which is
Mhm,
joint service. Every branch is there, and that takes about a year to go through.
mhm.
And it is physically and mentally extremely demanding with a very high attrition rate. But it's what I wanted to do, and I knew I didn't have a backup plan. I said, "This is what I want to do. I want to go be explosive ordnance disposal," which, for anybody that doesn't know, is essentially the bomb squad of the military. And luckily, I made it through. I was able to get through, and my first assignment was Misawa, Japan, which was incredibly lucky. Wonderful country, wonderful people there, unbelievable experience for a few years. And then they sent me close to home, which was Beale Air Force Base in California, right where I grew up. I was there for many years, and then I put in for uh, an instructor duty to come back to the preliminary course that I went through. And now I'm an instructor there, teaching the next generation for a few years, and then I'll head back to operational side. But it, it's it's been a long 10 years of my life. A third of my life has been dedicated to this job, and I didn't know how much I would love it going in, but it's absolutely video games, filmmaking, and EOD have become huge passions in my life, and skill sets that I didn't know I could unlock. And it's been a fantastic journey, and I still got 10 years left, but I hopefully it's just as good of a ride as the first 10 were.
Now you said they sent you back to Beale, that or where that's close to where you live, but that's also where you graduated, correct?
That is where, I mean, that's where I grew up.
Mm.
The main schoolhouse was in Eglin, Florida,
Okay, okay.
which is a beautiful place to spend a year if you're gonna get stuck somewhere a year. But
Yeah.
no, then they sent me back to Beale. There's not much going on at Beale
Yeah.
besides
I
cows and
also find it
farmland.
odd, like, I mean, you said it yourself, but, I've had a few friends, most of them went through the Army, one went through Marines, but pretty much I think only one of them got one of their top 5 places they had to list to go. I think only one of them got it, and it was, like, his 5th place.
Mhm.
So, the fact that you got such a nice place, whether or not it was on your list or, however that may work is
It's quite the opposite. So the Air Force is a funny place. It's a wonderful career, and they do take care of you, but they're very funny about where you want to go. Beale was
mm,
actually the very last place I wanted to go because I joined to travel. I had already been to Japan. I wanted to keep the train rolling. Said send me anywhere but right back home, and they heard right back home, and they sent me straight to Beale. But
gotcha.
it was a wonderful time being close to family, being in a place I knew without being a poor college kid was a great experience.
Yeah, I don't think you can really beat that too much, and, I mean, it's funny, you said EOD, gaming, and being an instructor, and you kind of find a weird way to merge them all together and production, excuse me, and you find a weird way to merge them all together by running a league. You get your bit of organization and getting to be a spearhead and keeping things in check while being, entrusting staff to hold it together. You get the production side as you are the main head of production for SDL. You get the gaming side of it, just getting to watch the fun games, like when we were casting for Paul in the tournament. Like we got to just be, Smite video game fans and watch an
Unbelievable
actual
experience.
pro go through, the amateurs and show what the difference between a pro and an amateur and all that. Like getting to wrap all those things together, I think says a lot about I think it says a lot about your drive to make those things connect because those aren't easy things to connect and to be able to do all at once. I mean, once you've gotten to certain points in the military, I mean, a lot of my friends, I'm sure you would vouch for this too. Depending, of course, on your situation, there are a lot of times where you can kind of get an annoying amount of free time and kind of too much where you just, you go crazy. And a lot of my friends have applied themselves, be it like I remember one of my friends, he actually, which is how I actually auditioned for casting for SDL. He was a part of kind of a rotating Tekken tournament when he was stationed in
Mhm.
Germany in the army, and they were getting serious. There was way too much money involved. I sometimes I wonder if they get investigated. I mean, there was some serious money involved, but no, just
Yeah.
I think that's it's so cool to me how, and it's maybe it's a little cringe or childish, but sometimes there's something so simple like being able to follow a path of gaming or a path of movie making or a path of theater, like all those things, you know, granted, I'm obviously not in it myself, don't have intentions to. I have a lot of respect for people who chase the career path of being in the military, knowing that it can open doors to live their lives how they want while also serving that greater purpose.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And it does provide a lot of opportunity, especially in my career field. There is, I wouldn't say a lot of downtime, but it does facilitate a lot for me to chase other passions. So,
Mhm.
I mean, season one, we went in eyes wide shut and not knowing what to expect. And it was a lot of work for us. I don't have to tell you on the production side. But my schedule, especially
Yeah,
being an
certainly not.
instructor, it's the brotherhood that is EOD. They understand when people need to do other things, and I could go in. You know, my schedule is 6 a.m. to 4 p.m., but I have a lot of free time in between that to be on Discord and facilitate things, and then afterwards, work until about midnight for a good part of season one in order to make things happen. But it's all about passion because Air Force isn't going to last forever, and I've got to have something on the outside that I want to do. And as much as I've tried, gaming will never stop being a part of me. I've considered, growing up and thinking, hey, is this really something I want to continue in the future? And it absolutely is. And I think I will continue to do this after the Air Force. So I've appreciated the fact that it has been as much of a facilitation as it has in order for me to chase my passion, as opposed to somebody who's working a job they don't have a love for and are working terrible hours and don't want to come home and basically work a second job for free nonetheless.
Mhm.
But it is something that I can do both the best of both worlds, and I'm very grateful for that.
Certainly, I think you said it best. So I think with that being a really nice leaning point, so let's talk about some fun stuff before we talk about season 1. I've kinda got 3 main
Woohoo!
things I wanna touch on with you, and
Okay.
I'm gonna drop them all at once. We can tackle them in any order you'd like. I'm gonna start with the Captain America cosplay. Then we're gonna go to the tattoos. I have some questions. I mean, there's obviously the American flag one we can see. There's the bear tattoo I gotta know about, and I need to know if the Xbox tattoo is actually a tattoo on you, because it kind of looked like one that I would find on MySpace as like a share. And then for the third one, I wanna talk about Call of Duty, and in
Okay.
particular, I would like to talk about the Team Mediocre Gaming and what that was like.
Oh my god. I don't know where you found this stuff on the internet, but let's get into it.
And again, you can tackle them in any order you'd like.
Which one would you like to do first?
Let's do tattoos. Let's start fun
Okay.
since,
I know
we
you're a
both have
tattoo
enough.
guy as well. Yep.
I have quite a few. I'm up to 27.
My god, man.
Yeah.
I wish I could have that much.
Yeah, you're a little limited to be fair, but I think the one I'm most curious about, you would think it'd be the bear, but I gotta know if the Xbox one is one you have, and if it is, I need to know the story.
Okay. Well, here's a moment of truth. Where did you see it at?
I saw it on your Instagram. It's a
But
bit of
where
a
on my body so I can
it
prove it or
was kind
disprove
of
it?
like here, I gotta put my camera on too for this. It was sort of what I guess would be like left pec area.
Left pec. Okay. Let's see.
Oh, it's real. It's there. The tension was there
Is it very
while you
real?
were
That's the
revealing
first
it.
tattoo I ever got.
The only reason I asked, it wasn't that it looked bad. It was the picture was so old that
Very old picture.
it looked like one of those things that you'd see as like an old like an OG version of like a hype beast. So I had to make sure it was real. But so tell
Yeah.
me the story with that one. And that was your
So
first.
yeah, so I got it when I was 18. I got it. I've had it redone a lot. So basically,
Yeah, it looks much brighter now.
we've already talked about gaming being a big part of my life, and it was. I mean, I made the majority of some of the best friends of my life through gaming, as specifically Xbox. It was the first console that I purchased myself. I grew up with N64s and whatnot,
Yeah.
but bought Xbox, played Halo fanatically, Gears of War fanatically, and eventually Call of Duty. And then once I got big into the MLG scene, it just became this burning desire to go pro. And it was my first big life goal as a young 14, 15-year-old. I wanted to go pro in some sort of game, and then eventually getting the chance to compete in Call of Duty with my friends, and then building these strong bonds on it. That was one of the biggest passions in my life. And then the bottom half of the tattoo is a soccer ball, which soccer was one of the biggest passions of my life at the time. I really wanted to go play college soccer. And I got some offers to do so. So that was a big goal of mine as well that came to fruition. But essentially, when I was 18 years old, a family friend came to the house and was touching up my stepmom's tattoo that she had. And then and I was just watching, and then he looked at me. He's like, "Do you want a tattoo?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want a tattoo." And he said, "Well, what do you want?" And I said, "I'll be right back." And I ran back to my room, and I actually drew the Xbox soccer ball one just on a piece of paper that I found in my room. Drew it real quick. I'm not an artist at all, but I drew it. And I said, "Give me this." And so he gave it to me right there, right off the drawing I made, which was not a great drawing. And bless his heart, he's not the world's most talented tattoo artist either. So it was a bit shaky, bit poor line work, no coloring, nothing. And it meant a lot to me, but it didn't look great. And then
For sure.
when I joined the military and I was actually in Florida, I got it touched up by somebody else, got it recolored, got the lines emboldened. And it looked a little better, but still, it wasn't exactly the vision I had in mind. And then once I got to Beale, I finally found another tattoo artist that I really liked, and he finished it off, putting the cracking in there, looking like it's set in my chest and whatnot, and it means a lot to me, despite it probably being some sort of copyright issue. Having an Xbox symbol on my chest, it means a lot to me. It signifies two biggest goals I had that essentially came to fruition, not as much as I would have liked to, but it also reminds me of all the friendships I built along the way, and not to forget
Yeah.
the things that I'm really crazy about. Yeah.
You know, something with tattoos that I stand by, because I've gotten mine very sporadically. My first one I got was right when I turned 18, and it was actually, the band I have around, you know, my
Yeah.
least interesting tattoo. But, something that I've always made myself feel better with, I won't ever regret a single one, because I always tell myself, like, 18-year-old me thought this was badass, or, like, when I got my either my Squirtle, it's hard to show, either my Squirtle or my Charmander, you know, I was like, kid me, teenage me would love them so much that even if when I'm 45, if I hate them, kid me be so happy, I honestly could care less. So it's, you know, everybody gets their own thing out of tattoos, but I think being able to make child yourself happy or current yourself happy is ultimately the most important thing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's a great reminder when, you get burned out playing games, ranked, Smite's not going your way. You've played too many games and you're not sure you want to do it anymore. Just take a reminder of, why did I get this tattoo, man? Because I love it so much. I love gaming so much. I
Mhm.
love how it makes me feel, what it does for communities. And it's just a great reminder to always have on you. I don't regret not a second of it.
So you've got the bear on your back.
Yes.
Also, I'm very curious about the story behind. You don't have to show it. I can put up a picture if we'd like, but if you could explain it, I'm very curious.
It was not as much of a rash decision, but there was a fantastic tattoo artist in Japan when I was
Yeah, the
there, and
work
I
on it is gorgeous.
he does amazing work, and I was just, I gotta get something. And I'd been in Japan for probably a year and a half. I've been away from my family for almost 3 years. I was really missing where I'm from, which is Northern California. And I just came
Mm.
across this picture on the internet, and the bear signifies California and the trees and everything in it. It just really spoke to me, and I thought that when I see that, that's going to remind me of Northern California. There's not a lot more going to it. Like, I got California on my back, baby, represent.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you
But
mean.
it's a good reminder, and it's something that I could see. Like, yeah, I would be very happy with that being on my body forever. And I was incredibly happy the way it came out.
Plus, when you get a bigger piece like that too, especially if you're fortunate enough to go to an artist who can master a giant piece like that covers your entire width of your
Mhm.
shoulders. I mean, honestly, it almost doesn't matter what it is because you just want to have that space done well,
Yeah,
and it definitely is. Now you have the one in your arm.
yeah.
Is that we'll talk about this one next, but is that the other big group you have, or do you have any more after that?
This is my last tattoo. Is a half sleeve. And this one
Nice.
is also, it has a lot more significance on it. So this one,
Was there a
it's
Captain
hard.
America shield at the top?
There's not.
It kind of looks like it from
It looks like it's
I'm
hard to
looking
see
at
from
I'm
this
looking
angle.
through like 3 layers of cameras just to be fair
Right.
to anybody
Right
watching.
here, it's the EOD badge called the crab. The symbol of our career field is the master badge, which I wear, as signifies the highest level achievement in EOD. And then what's harder to see is in these in the red stripes are 20 names, and that is the 20 names of the fallen Air Force EOD guys that died at time of war. It meant a lot to me in the work I was doing, and sometimes it's very easy to forget why you're at the job and how important it is. And so I felt very strongly about always having a reminder, and always. And it's also a strong reminder for the future that no matter what I'm doing and who I'm working with, that I don't want to add another name to my arm. And I voice that to my students all the time when they forget the importance of what we're trying to teach them and what we're trying to accomplish in this job. That, hey, either you take these lessons to heart and you find a passion about this and be good at this, or you're going to end up another name on my arm, and none of us want that. And so it's a very strong reminder. And obviously, like I said, one of the 3 big passions in my life. So easy decision for that tattoo as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think, I mean, we talked about it, but each one has a meaning, and each one can go so deep, or it can be so silly. And I mean, I have both types. One of my silliest looking ones is the duck with the welding helmet on my arm, but that's actually I had a family member who I was really close to before she passed away. I got her this little rubber duck that had like a spinning top on it, and she was like wheelchair scooter bound before she passed. And unfortunately, I didn't actually get to see her before she passed. But one of the things they kept telling me was that she'd sit there and just spin it for hours and hours and hours. So, when people look at my tattoos, it's always one of the first ones where they're like, "Is that a duck with a welding helmet? Is that
Right.
a hockey helmet?" I get tons of different comments on it. And, I normally just say, like, "Yeah," and say it's silly, but, I
But it's a
think
beautiful reminder to you.
exactly, and I think yours does the same exact thing, and, it's just fascinating how and it's kinda like gaming, how something that can be so abstract from an abstract perspective being so simple can be so deep and carry so much weight for a person. For you it's reminders for you and your students. For me it's thinking of my family member and thinking of like what she stood for me. It's so many different things, and I think that's you know no matter what it looks like. Same with the Xbox One, or I've got a I can't show it because of where it is, but I got a Harley Quinn who looks like Betty Boop. Wild
I love
tattoo.
that.
So, I think no matter what it is, as long as it makes you happy, ultimately, yeah, that's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
So, Team Mediocre. I found I found this old montage to Shine Down. It was 11 years ago, it would have been fire. I mean, it's still kinda heat.
It was
11
pretty
years
fun.
ago, it
It took
went
us
pretty
about
hard.
12 hours to edit.
I
That was
believe it.
before the world of capture cards and whatnot.
I
We
believe it.
started
There was wide angle shots. I thought I saw a lens flare. At a certain point, Megan Fox walked on the camera. It was honestly better than Transformers movies. So, what was Team Mediocre?
Oh, wow.
And if it was silly, you can say it was silly, but I figured I'd bring it up
It
regardless.
became silly. It grew into something kind of amazing, but it was always just that was always the team name me and my friends went with. It's kind of like the name iNooblet, where you put off this persona that you're kind of okay, but then you go and show up and bring your A game and make people guess why your name is that. But mediocre game was just always fun. We never wanted to be the final boss, the triggers down, straight ripping, just the badass names. We wanted our gameplay to show for ourselves. So all of our friends, we'd always make that our team name, Mediocre Gaming. And then actually the very first MLG event I went to, which you can look up online, was MLG Anaheim, and we entered as Mediocre Gaming, and it did not go well. It went very
So,
poorly
unfortunately,
for
you
us.
lived up to the name.
Yes, we did,
That's tough.
and honestly, that name is still carried to this day. That was 15 years ago, maybe, and then to this day, a very funny story for you on your podcast was how I met some of my best friends in the Smite community. People like Thick House and Cobby and them that are hanging around the Discord. The first Smite Worlds I ever went to, hanging out at the hotel with our friends, like at the time El Chapo, now El Leon, Andy and Weekend and them. We're hanging out at the bar, and this respectfully older lady was talking to me at the bar, and I was by myself. She was being flirtatious, trying to strike up a conversation. I was trying to explain to her what I was here for, what Smite Worlds was. Didn't quite understand, and then I was trying to steer the conversation away from me, and I saw this lad sitting next to me, whose name is Cody. Now I know Cody Brickhouse. Um, and I said, "This gentleman right here, and I and three other friends are on a team. We're competing here at Smite World Championships." And so, oh, what's your team name? It's Mediocre Gaming. We are Mediocre Gaming. And then this poor guy that I just threw under the bus, who's never met me a day in my life, just full committed to it. He's like,
Oh my
absolutely.
god.
We are on this team together. I think I was the jungler. He was the support. Some guys came down from the hotel room and they're like, yeah, we're the whole squad. And it was a wonderful thing. And then we kept the name
Oh
alive.
my
We
god.
definitely never went anywhere with it because we were certainly not good enough to play in any competitive scene in Smite, but created some lifelong friends, and I'm still very good friends with them to this day and meet them at Worlds every time it's up. So it's a name that's probably going to live on forever for me, even though it's
That's
not a very great name.
that's fantastic. I couldn't be any more glad I asked about that one. Without a doubt, that's absolutely fantastic. Do you still have the MLG headset from your Instagram profile picture?
Funny you should ask. It's right here.
How did I know you wouldn't disappoint with that?
It is right here. Yep. So I have the very first pair of Astros I bought. I got the MLG tags on them. I got tag signed by some of my favorite all-time legends like Walshy, the Godfather of Halo, T Squared, things like that. And then I wore them. That was the MLG Anaheim event, and I wore them proudly, and I looked great doing it. And we just got our butts kicked. So
Hey, it happened. At least you win. You have the
yeah.
story. That's what matters more. My favorite competitive story was when I competed in Guitar Hero, and I was
Ooh.
eliminated by a girl, and it was her first tournament. And then I got upset because I was a bit younger, and to make me feel better, the guy who was there as, like, the showcase piece, like, "Oh, I'm the famous, I toured, I compete around the world," was like, "I'll play you." And we did a simple song, and I'll give him that. I remember we played What I've Done on Guitar Hero World Tour, and he missed a note, and I did not, so I beat him. So I beat the showcase guy, and I will never forget because obviously I was a kid, so why wouldn't I be stoked? And he
Mhm.
was I think he may have been around 20 at the time, and I will never forget how salty that grown man was. He was so upset, and then I bragged about it on YouTube in a comment a few months later, and he's like, "You're just some fucking whiny kid." And, like, 12-year-old me was like, "I'm also 12, so how does this look for you?" And that was my only one of 2 LAN events I ever went to, and granted it was Guitar Hero, but that story just make I'm so glad I lost just to have experienced the salt of, a 20-year-old Guitar Hero pro, and
Yeah.
you think
I
it's
tell
bad in something like Call of Duty, but Guitar Hero is bad.
I tell you, LAN events will humble you real quick. I went into that event thinking I was the best player on the earth, and man, a lot of the scrims was. So I'll give you a little insight. The very first thing we did, MLG Anaheim, we show up, we're ready to play. They have this big area with like 700 PlayStations because it was on PlayStation only at the time, which I didn't know before I went. So I had to swap from Xbox to PlayStation in the hotel and try and learn PlayStation controllers. And you could play on that, or obviously they had the main stages, and then they had a feature stage, which was just in the center of the area. It was on a raised platform. You go up, you have monitors above your head for the crowd to watch, and pretty much all of the normal areas were taken. So me and the squad were like, let's get on this feature stage. Let's do it. Let's show them what we got. We got up on it, and on the other side of us. Can't remember their names, but professional team that's been in the scene for a long time got across from us on the feature stage, and we're like, let's go, this is our moment. We played a quick free for all to warm up. Absolutely did great. I was really good player in the free for all, top player at the end of it. And then we're like, all right, let's play some team comps. And I have never been more embarrassed in my life than playing against this professional team, showing up
That's how it be.
and with a huge crowd around us. And I walked off that stage in my head, and I went, all right, maybe I got some more to learn. And then
At
we
least you got
proceeded to get
humbled.
our butts kicked the rest of it. And I went, all right, I have a lot more to learn. It
I
was
mean, that's how you learn in those
beautiful experience, though.
situations, though.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So before we get to talking about season 1 and, going over the boring stuff, the Captain America cosplay, I saw it was a stream goal of some type, but what's the story on that? And my follow-up question that I'll ask now, we have some I'm spoiling things from our script, but we might have some fundraising streams planned this year. Any
Mhm.
chance that can make a return as a donation goal?
Absolutely. Which one would
Uh,
you like to talk about first?
I'm thinking I'm thinking we talk about the Captain America cosplay and what led to it, and then now
Okay.
that I know we can do it as a donation goal, can we add the mullet wig to the Captain America cosplay?
Okay, so I will never say Captain America because I don't want to get sued. It is been dubbed Sergeant Freedom. I
Sergeant
am a
Freedom, I like
I am
that.
a staff sergeant in the Air Force, so it kinda lined up. It all started
Excuse me.
at I can't remember, it was my first. I think it was my second Smite Worlds ever, which, different than what they had this year. There's a lot of vendors set up in the area, so when you're not watching, there's not a gameplay, you can walk around, buy really cool items from everybody, and there's this one vendor that had a really authentic Captain America shit. I don't know if I have it readily available around here somewhere. Probably in the closet. Just beautiful, made of metal, leather straps, heavy. Looks like I could fight somebody with it. It looks like I could defend my house. And I was like, that is amazing. And it was hundreds of dollars. And I was like, not that amazing. So I left it alone. I kept going back. And then just all day it was just eating at me. And of course, my buddies being good influences there were just like, you should
Just
go
get
buy
it.
that shield. Just buy the shield. And I was like, I shouldn't. And they're like, go buy the shield. It was the only one. There was only one available. So I eventually went back and bought the shield. And that was on day 1. And I carried it with me the rest of day 2 and day 3. And it was awesome. I loved it so much. And then I got back home and I went, I have this incredible shield. I don't know what to do with it. So I got to complete the ensemble. So I went and purchased a very authentic tailored Captain America suit from someone not in America. Don't know where it was. Took a long time to get to me, but it was beautiful. And I wear it every chance I get, which is normally just Halloween or special events. And so I thought it would be fun to just throw into my stream that if people redeemed enough points, I would stream as Sergeant Freedom, which
Sergeant Freedom.
full Captain America suit, the shield was completed with pit vipers and my mullet, which another funny story.
I was on it.
I didn't, when I started streaming, I did not know who Dr. Disrespect was. And I've just for years, my entire life, have been rocking mullets and pit viper type glasses, and just started growing my mustache in 2018. So when I was doing that stream, people would start dropping in and be like, "Why are you cosplaying Dr. Disrespect?" And I was like, "Who is this guy?"
No.
And I looked him up and I went, "This guy stole my whole look, man. I can't compete with that."
And he's gigantic. Damn it.
He's gigantic. I think I could take him in any game, but the man's a legend. That is one of the best entertainers of our generation for sure. That guy is so entertaining to watch. So it was like looking at in the mirror, honestly, just watching his streams. But I had to exnate the pit vipers and mullet as much as I could, just because I don't want to be copying him.
You want to seem like a copy.
I thought for a while changing my name to like Captain Respect or something, and then challenging him to a 1v1. Never worked out that way, but yeah, it was a fun thing. And honestly, I hated every time someone redeemed that, because then I had to spend the next like 19 hours on stream in that ensemble, and it was very tight and very hot and not comfortable to game in. But the crowd loved it. It was very fun. I still have it.
We'll see what strings we can pull to get Sergeant Freedom back for our fundraising stream sometime this season. Maybe we'll get a cast, put a little camera on. We'll make some fun out of it. What did Doggos think of the costume? What was Nightwing's feelings?
Nightwing, so I probably can't wear the mullet now because Nightwing has destroyed that mullet every chance he's gotten. He finds it hidden in any spot and absolutely just rips it apart.
Glad I asked.
I don't know what he has against long blonde hair, but the man doesn't like it. It's probably because I have to go on stream for several hours and not be able to pet him. But that dog's my best friend, and he supports whatever I do. So eventually he'll love it.
You cannot beat that. All right. I think, unfortunately, we've exhausted the majority of the fun stuff. So let's talk about the only non-fun thing to talk about. Season 1, I think, from my perspective, was a really great success. And I think there's a lot to be proud of from staff, the league coordinators, production, especially production. Might be a little biased there. But obviously there were some things that didn't go great. And, I'd be remiss to talk to the owner and not at least pretend to be a gateway to the community and say that, from my perspective of not being the owner, just being the guy who casts, a lot of those issues from season 1, a lot of the scheduling issues, a lot of the questions on production and posting, a lot of them are going to be addressed and fixed. But I figured I would give you a chance to maybe talk about them and talk about the improvements that we expect to see this season from your mouth, not my own.
I appreciate the opportunity to do that. So yeah, like I said, season 1 was always going to be really bumpy along the way. We dove in headfirst. We made the league. We brought in a really awesome crew. We had a plan, and then we just jumped straight into it. And we honestly were not anticipating the numbers of participants we got right off the bat. And I don't know that we weren't necessarily ready for it, but it was a big surprise. And we had a lot of visions. Anybody knows me knows, like I said, the visions of grandeur. I'm always trying to go bigger and better and be the best quickly. And I think we had really good concepts, but it might have been a bit more than we could chew. And obviously not all of it resonated. So I think the big one was the streaming schedule. I've talked to some people about it. Anybody who's done any type of streaming or organized sports for that matter, knows schedules matter. People have to know when to tune in. You have to know when the Super Bowl is playing in order to go watch the Super Bowl, right? and when your favorite team's playing, and when to tune into your favorite streamer. So the idea was, hey, the number one problem, as most people will tell you in running a league, is trying to get 150 people who all have different jobs, different schedules, different availability on to play Smite at the same time. And it's dang near impossible. And the thought behind it was, we'll have a set schedule. That way teams will, or viewers will know when to tune in. And then also you'll have a heads up, be like, hey, I know that 3 weeks from now I play Saturday at 5 p.m. So I can start moving some stuff around to make that happen. And it just didn't work out as anticipated. It just was more of a headache than than anticipated for the players mostly. And players are the number one people to make happy. That's what we're here for, is to give people a fun and competitive place to play Smite. And if it wasn't working out for them, it wasn't great. And it also created, as you know, a huge headache for production, trying to match this massive influx of games we had with the small staff that we had. But I think we pulled through. I think eventually the players met us halfway, understood what we were trying to do, and
For sure.
and found a way to make it happen. And then we found a way to make it happen for them and get it out. We had over 60 games posted to the YouTube, a lot of live streams. We were pumping out content. A lot of us working till midnight to make it happen. But that was the goal. And I think now season 2, we're very prepared. I mean, well, more prepared than we were for season 1, and we've swapped some things around. I think the biggest complaints we had were, one, people just wanted to play, and the way our draft was set up and the ad drop was set up, people just weren't getting the chance to actually play Smite. And so we've addressed that, obviously, with the new rules for ability to ad drop people, the open circuit. So no matter what happens to you, you can still play and have a chance at playoffs. And then, of course, the schedule. So what we're doing for season 2, players may not know yet, is we're no longer going to hold you to a specific time on a day. However, our content will be put up at a specific time on a specific day. So we may put them as YouTube premieres. We may do some special events on the Twitch live stream, but they will be consistent. So hey, Saturday, 3 p.m. or whenever it may be, that's when Smite Draft League is putting up the games for the week. And we'll have to talk with the players and still do some back and forth. But essentially, we're ready for their content to come in when they can play at their leisure, and then we can put it up on a timely schedule for the viewers. And I think that'll hopefully work better than season 1. And if it doesn't, we'll learn from it just like we did. And then in season 3, we'll make adjustments. And eventually this will be a well-oiled machine.
I think you said everything perfect, and I think that's the big thing. And I think we showed that, especially at the end of season 1, that if nothing else, we're going to communicate when we're having problems and just ask people to work with us and try to improve on those problems. And I think the open circuit, I think the revised look at scheduling, I think our plans for production and rolling out the content and how we want to deliver it is just a much improved way of looking at it. Our casting team has grown. Pretty much every staff position has grown significantly. We've moved people up, and I think overall it's going to be a pretty great season 2. Is there anything else you wanted to add about the season 2 and the hype for season 2 before we move on?
I think we have a lot of great things planned. So you'll probably notice in the Discord we rolled out premium Discord, and I don't want that be misconstrued by the community. It's not a money grab. It's not to try and make money. It's because we want more. We want to give back more to the community. So we've been working tirelessly to make some awesome merch, to make some fun things like this podcast that you've created, Anthony, which is awesome, and I can't wait to see the future results of it. The stats coming from the coach Steve, all these things. We want to be able to give it back to the community who are dedicated to it, and unfortunately, that takes funding. I burned about $7,000 of my own money making season 1 happen, and I think I'll just end up being homeless trying to continue that in the future. So it's gonna have to, and I think that's another important thing to address, is that I came into season 1 thinking, kind of like the humbling at land. Like I know I have a production background. I've run some big orgs before with the Air Force, with Smite. Like I know how this is going to work, and I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to be better than the other leagues. And what I didn't realize is how much the old saying, it takes a village to raise a baby or whatever.
Yeah.
It really takes that, and I almost have the least role in this league. It takes a wonderful staff with our league coordinators who are organizing everything behind the scenes, crunching all the numbers, putting the players where they need to go, and getting all that organized. It takes Oath running the Discord, which I have zero knowledge of how to run a Discord, and making all that happen tirelessly in the background with Royal helping him. It takes the amazing caster staff. I don't know why I maybe assumed I would just cast 100% of the games. And luckily we found talent like you and Kingfisher and Jeffrey and everybody who came on to this who has just as big as passion as me, but has better talents than me in that area, that you guys can provide that. So the league coordinators have talents in organizing. You have talents in casting. Oath has talents in the Discord. Even our HR team, who just has talents dealing with people. It takes all of that to run this league. And then, of course, it takes the talent of the players to even have a league. If we didn't have a great community that were just amazing players at Smite, we wouldn't have anything. And so it takes all of us to run this. And that's what I think I was really missing in season 1, and what I'm really trying to push forward to in season 2, that it takes all of us. And I don't have all the talents inside of myself to run this thing. It takes all of us.
I don't think there's anything I could add to that to make it any better of a statement. I think we're set up for a lot of great things for season 2, and I mean, I think as long as our communication stays the way it is with the community, I'd be hard pressed to find the problems. I'm sure they'll be found anyway, but I'd be hard pressed to find them. But with that, that's going to bring us to the end of the episode here for non-premium members. Don't worry, this is the first episode. You aren't missing much. You're just going to miss some silly stuff here at the end for premium. But if you want to be a part of that premium, then all you have to do is go on to the Discord and subscribe to the silver or the gold tier, and you'll be able to view every episode of this podcast going forward, including some extra stuff. And I'll start letting you in on some behind the scenes stuff of it. You get it early as well. If you're in the gold tier, a lot of stuff to go with it. So again, a big thank you for watching the first episode, and a huge thank you to our guest, iNooblet, the owner of the Smite Draft League, for wearing his heart and his flag on his sleeve and giving us all the information we could have ever wanted about himself and the Smite Draft League.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Been awesome to be able to get all this information out there and to be working with you directly.
I appreciate that. And again, thank you, and thank you for watching. And that brings us to the end of it. We'll see you next time.